Hello and welcome back. Today I am excited to talk to Dr. Aditi Paul. She is a professor and mixed methods researcher based in New York City. She uses her multidisciplinary background in computer science and communication studies to examine the impact of using human-centered technologies like social networking sites and online dating services. Aditi's research has been published in top academic journals and has been featured in prominent media outlets such as The Washington Post, Women's Health, The Telegraph UK, Huffington Post, NBC News, and more. Her book, The Current Collegiate Hookup Culture, Dating Apps, Hookup Scripts, and Sexual Outcomes, is out now and available at all the places that you can get books. So I am very excited to have you here. So hi.
Hi, Hunt. I just took a look at my own website and I'm like, I need to update all of that.
I feel the same way.
Oh man, but thank you
What
so
is
much.
new? Fill in what is new on that.
What is new? Oh my gosh. I am a completely new person. I'm kidding. I used to do a whole bunch of work in online dating, and we used to work in academia. That's a thing of the past. As of a year ago, I transitioned out of academia, but I did not abandon the things that I loved in academia for this new course of life. I still love teaching, but I do it in a separate context. I still love catching up on online dating research, even though I have not pursued that in the last couple of months. By that, I mean pursued online dating research.
Yes, we will get into
But
that.
I mean, that's been a part of my life for 13 years, for 13 years. And it was my first love in research, and it still holds a very dear place in my heart to this day.
Well, good. Well, that was kind of my first question too. Is that how did you get involved in the world of dating and relationships?
How does one get into the world of dating
Okay,
and
how about
relationships?
as a researcher as opposed to a
Oh, as a researcher.
participant?
Oh yeah. I mean, I skirted the my involvement in online dating as an excuse of my research when I was full blown doing online dating. I would have done it with or without the research, but it just gave me a
Right.
good way to justify. But I mean, if you take it back when you read that description out that, oh, she looks at the impact of technology on relationships. I have been a kid of the 90s where the internet was just coming up, and we were feral back then.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
right now the kids and teenagers have so much media literacy. We had nothing. We were the children and the parents of the internet. Nobody was there to teach us how to use it. Nobody was there to teach us how not to use it. So we were just doing everything that we should not be doing. So my first brush with online dating was when I was in sixth grade. I am going to date myself so much. Have you heard of this thing called LimeWire? Have you heard of LimeWire?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There's so many pages on on Instagram right now, on the Instagram. My God, how boomer can I get? So there are so many pages right now on Instagram talking about like 90s nostalgia and how we used to come back home and we used to like have these Microsoft music players and look at those like graphics and just listen to Evanescence.
Oh yeah.
That's the period of history that I come from. And I distinctly remember when we got the internet, and this I was in sixth grade. We had this modem, this huge ass like monitor, and that's when I got my first brush with online dating. And by that I mean we had something called Yahoo Messenger. And do you understand if I say ASL? Is that a thing? Do you
Dude,
understand?
I loved that. That was AOL for me too.
Yes,
Like, yeah, yeah,
right.
ASL. What's going
It's
on?
the
Like,
ASL, age, sex, location. And I was this gawky teenager with like facial hair not not visible to the opposite sex at all. And here I was in a parallel universe where even though I was 14F Calcutta in India, I was 18F San Diego. Somehow I thought
Hmm.
San Diego was a cool place. God knows why. And I catfished people all the time. And that was my first brush with like, oh, I'm talking to a stranger online and we're forming a connection and I feel things in my tummy. And I'm like, that in retrospect, when I actually started getting my PhD in communication, all of those things started making sense to me.
Oh
That
yeah.
why was I feeling such feelings for a complete stranger without ever knowing who this person was until I read about this theory called hyperpersonal communication. So it's a computer mediated communication theory, and the premise of that theory is when you don't know the other person on the other side of the computer, when they do not come with a face, you do strategic self-presentation. You only show things that you want the other person to see, and you over attribute good things to that person. You idealize this person. So it becomes like, oh, this person could be a pumpkin, but in my head, they are this like I don't know, like the most beautiful person you can think of in the universe.
Totally. And they've chosen me to
They've
talk with because
chosen
I
me.
am so effervescent.
Yes, and this was also the time where you did not have a public versus private setup, and by that I mean you're scrolling on Instagram, your Instagram feed is visible to everybody, but your DMs are only for this one person. This was all DMs, so there's an exclusive, just one-on-one conversation that's happening. So you overascribe, you like dream of things, and that's how my online dating experience started. And I shudder thinking about the kind of dumb decisions I took as a teenager. I would meet folks. I was a 14-year-old girl meeting strangers off the internet in real life. And every single time that I met them, they turned out to be exactly what you think they should be:
Mm,
older
mm-hmm.
men. And I'm like, what was I doing? What the hell? I mean, if I was my own daughter, I would put her behind bars. I'm like, you are not leaving
Oh,
home.
I'm
You're staying grounded till you're 21.
yeah, that's going to be
Um,
interesting. Looking at my daughters now, they're 6 and 3. I'm like, oh, I've seen all
but
the
they're
data.
so much more like smarter than we are. They know that we don't run our mouths on the internet. We have nothing to screenshot them for. We have all the ammo for us. I mean, I am waiting for the day when somebody is going to dig up something from my Facebook, something dumb that I might have said, and
I
like,
same. I'm glad that I got through college before camera phones.
oh my gosh. I mean, it's just, I mean, we dodged a bullet, didn't we?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
just dodged a
I
bullet.
will be curious to see, because the data basically shows that when it comes to politicians,
Mhm.
we elect people that we see in front of us, not necessarily based on their policies. I'm very curious to see if they're like, because basically everyone now has their entire life monitored.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whether we're going to elect someone that has made mistakes in their life, we'll look back and be
Mm,
able to see their 11-year-old self on Facebook and be
true,
like, oh,
true,
that's a
true,
normal human
true.
being.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be someone that never posted anything and curates it so much
Mm.
so to hide it, that's the person we're going to choose from. So I'll be,
We are, yeah. I think you already know the answer to that. We will
yeah.
choose people who have some dents in their past, because look at how the tide is shifting between Gen Z and millennials. Like we over vectored so much to portray our lives as, oh, I have a salad and let me just like haha smile at the salad. Like why
Have
am
you
I
seen
that?
that website?
Which website?
Women smiling eating salad.
There is a whole
There is a
website.
whole website
Oh my God.
because of
Oh
that
my God.
Shutterstock meme. Basically, it's
Just why did we do that? Why would we do that? Like why did we think that we have to curate our lives so much? And all the social media stars that I grew up with are getting canceled left, right, and center
oh
because we
yeah.
over idolize their lives. And now, I mean, listen, I am not the one who's just like, oh, Gen Z is the cure of it all. Like, no, it's the pendulum is swinging. So it swung way to the side of idealism with
Mm-hmm.
millennials, and Gen Z is swinging to the other side, but there is an equal, if not more, of a concerted effort to show that you are flawed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It used to be like, you're getting your head shrunk.
Yeah.
Now it's like, dude, my therapist told me today that he's going to up my milligrams of
Yeah.
Thorazol all the way, so,
So it's like now you're doing the same thing, but on the other side, that, oh, let me show how messy I am. This is authentic. Is it authentic though? Or are you curating that blurry picture and making it look like it's
well,
authentic?
this is called trauma porn too, where
Yeah.
people,
Oh
because,
yeah.
oh, like you look at the American Idol or any of those shows, no one can win unless they have a sad, like,
Sad
backstory.
story. Yeah,
And so
sad
they'll just make
story.
stuff up. Or look at, unfortunately, Hassan Minaj right now, and the stuff that he's going through, basically falsifying his racist encounters
Oh,
over his life. And there's a
yeah.
difference between comedy and truth telling,
Hmm.
but you sort of need to.
I've
Yeah, it's just
I've
dangerous.
seen this way too much because I mean, we were talking about what do I do right now. I've shifted my focus more toward supporting the immigrant community because above anything else, I am an immigrant first, and I had to put that on the back burner for a long time. But now I'm feeding that part of my life, and that's the calling that I feel. So I am far too familiar with this narrative because when you're thinking about an immigrant, you're thinking of a certain persona, right? You're always thinking about like you've come from nothing and now you're building your life from scratch only for that like overcoming to become story. Everybody likes that story. But what people don't also realize that people who are coming from other countries, they're not always coming with a dollar and a dream. They're coming with thousands of dollars sometimes. And I have seen more people than I care to have seen where people are like, oh, I've come from this remote village and the outskirts of India. No, dude, you came from a very privileged ass place. Like, own up to it. Your accomplishment in the US is not going to be diluted because you own up to the fact that you went to a privileged school. You used your privilege to take you from point A to point B. You don't
Nothing wrong with that if it's
Nothing
used
wrong
in
with
the
that.
right way.
Nothing wrong with that. So, in the same vein, Hassan, I'm sure, faced racism, he's a brown boy. I get it. I get it. There's a lot of internalized trauma there as well because his
Hmm.
dad is Indian and his dad is not just Indian, he's a Muslim Indian. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of unpacking that needs to happen. But that does not give you permission to go into oppression porn, right? And fabricate
Yeah.
struggles that you did not have, especially when you have such an important voice in a community that has far too often been erased from media and entertainment. You were bringing that nuance only to then fall flat on your face. Like, I get it, I get it. I mean, if it was a white man, we would not have put him under a microscope. This person is being put under a microscope because he's brown, and we can hold him accountable. Both can exist at the same time.
Yep. Yep. And it's so complicated too, because if he said my life was great, I never had any issues,
Yeah.
people, well, I don't want to listen to you.
Mm.
And I understand Cal Penn, you know who he is.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I knew someone that worked with him, so knew quite a long time ago that he was gay.
Mm.
But when he was a struggling actor,
Hmm.
and then was appointed by Obama to be, a voice for the artistic community, I understood that he needed to keep that to himself because he was doing such good work for the
Yep.
community that he was in, and it was so important that it could have overshadowed all of that work that he was currently working on,
Hmm.
because society in general can only take so many commas,
Hmm.
from someone. You can only
Hmm.
be one thing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
speak to that
yeah.
one thing, and there's
Yeah.
obviously an issue.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's and I was an exchange student, lived overseas in a country that I didn't speak the language. Granted, it was France and it was Western Europe, so the
Yeah.
cultural mores are relatively similar,
Mm.
but all your intelligence, all your flirting, all your humor, your
Hmm.
ego just gets squashed down
Oh,
into
yeah.
nothing, and you have
Yeah.
to rebuild it
Yep.
bit by bit.
But there's this one beautiful dialogue from Modern Family. I'm such a Modern Family nut. Gloria says, do you know how smart I am in Spanish? And do you know how flirtatious I am in Midwest English? Like, do you know? I can floor you with my.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
But then you got to build up that game in France.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was fun learning. This is kind of what brought me to all this too, is like learning those mores, like I made
Yeah.
out with a girl at New Year's Eve at a New Year's Eve party, and
Ooh.
the next day at school, they're like, "Oh, so you and Anne Claire are going out?" I'm like, "Guess
Yeah.
that's not kind of how it works where I'm from."
Is it oh, really? I thought French folks are more like sexually more egalitarian than American folks.
Differently, like they'll
Mhm.
find looking at breasts, but don't necessarily get drunk at parties and hook up with each other. Um, it's
Mhm.
it also because it's a largely Catholic
Mm.
country as well too, because like, they killed all the Protestants, and so that comes into effect. And like like your research and like everywhere else, there's so many little things at
Mhm.
play within. Plus, here in the U.S., I was in drama and
Mm.
chess club and AV audiovisual club, so you can assume
Yeah.
what my social structure looked like.
Mm. Mhm.
But when I went to France, I was the big hulking athletic guy because it was just a
Mm.
completely different. What does the Americans value?
Mm.
Sports,
Sport.
bigness. What does French value? Not that.
Connect.
So it was different. It was
Yeah.
interesting for me to have
Yeah.
that flipped.
Mhm.
And working here in New York City, Jersey City, New York City,
Mhm.
everyone is an immigrant from somewhere. Even
That's right.
even the people that are born in America
Mm.
usually aren't from New York City. They
Mhm.
moved here from
Somewhere else.
somewhere else as well
Yeah.
too. So everyone's
Yeah.
just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And
Mhm.
I've been doing this for over 15 years. So when I started doing this, online dating itself was still considered taboo.
That's right.
That was back in the
The narrative
MySpace
was,
days.
yeah, that was the narrative was you just couldn't find anybody offline. That's why you had to resort to online.
Yep,
Like
exactly.
you're an
There's a last
uggo,
ditch.
you're a
Yep,
weirdo.
yep. So most of my clients were like late 40s guys, late 30s guys that felt like this was the last possible thing that they could do to
Okay.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I didn't know about this. So like I in my head, and this was very juvenile of me to assume, I thought we just went from 0 to 100 in online dating, and it's not the case. So
Mm-mm.
I am one of those like people who will keep asking questions till the cows come home, and just the morbid curiosity at a
Sure.
cocainated level. So I was at an Airbnb in Sunnyvale, California, and it was hosted by a white lady, and I was there for a conference for my like communication studies as a professor. And one thing led to another. We were sharing a cup of tea, and she's asking me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I do my research in online dating." And then she started talking about how she was married, or maybe she was married, or she dated this guy through video online dating. And I'm like, "What is video online dating?" So
Oh
apparently,
yeah.
people
Uh-huh.
would go to these studios and have their videos slash photos taken, and they would like if Tinder was a person, so they would go and submit these videos and their profiles to this person. They would keep it at a stack, and 1 week later they would come back and see how many people have left their information, and that's how the entire thing started. I'm like, what?
There's still some old videos of those online. They're
Yes,
hilarious. They're
that
they're
is
they're cute and sad and funny and
but listen, Hunt, can you, okay, 30 years from now, can you imagine two people just like this having a conversation just like this about Tinder? Like, can you believe there are still screen grabs of them in an Instagram page? Like, it's
oh
hilarious. I mean,
yeah.
I cannot wait to be technology shamed by the next generation. I cannot wait. I mean, I just can't wait.
I
I
know
love
it's
it.
it's 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 starting. But one thing I found is interesting too from reading is that it's not that the kids these days are digital natives, is that they're phone natives. Like you
Mm.
put or pad natives. You put them in
Mm-hmm.
front of a computer and
Mm-hmm.
say navigate the web.
Mm.
They or open a file,
Mm-hmm.
then they get a little confused. So
That's
I'll be
good
curious
observation.
because yeah, it's mostly just app navigation through phone. It's not
Mm,
sitting down kind of
no.
and I mean, talk about the old days of the internet. You had to like work your way through those pages and figure out where to go and how to do it, and everything took so long.
Very
And
intuitive. It's very intuitive for them. And then somebody told me, like, how we had a floppy disk,
oh yeah,
and they think that the save button, like the floppy disk, is a 3D printed version of the save button on their computer. And one of my colleagues, he said that their children don't save things. Like I will freakishly like keep saving things so I
we've
don't
all
miss them.
lost
Yeah,
something.
we've lost something. And they don't have to save. Like it's on Notion, it's on Google. Like,
I'm trying to even figure out what the notion of
yeah,
ownership
I was gonna
means
say, girl,
anymore.
same. I'm like, no, same, same. I'm like,
Like,
what is Notion? What is Airtable? What are these words? I'm lucky to know ChatGPT at least. Just,
yes, and I think that that's going to be interesting too. Is like because at the beginning of the internet, it was don't trust anything on this. Everybody's a
Mm,
liar. Then we moved into influencer time, trust everybody
mm,
online, and now I think with AI and Chat
mhm,
GPT,
mhm,
now it's we can't trust anything online ever
mm,
again.
mm,
And so I
mhm,
hope that the next generation kind of
mhm,
looks at the internet as a cool, fun thing to do that is just everybody lies
mhm,
and come into it with that because taking reciprocity away or consequences away from people's actions and comments
mhm,
might not have been a really great idea
mm,
when it comes to the internet. You know,
mm.
the town weirdos all got together and made stuff more weird.
Yeah.
So wanted to obviously talk to you about your research, and obviously you and I, I'm sure, could talk and probably will talk again. Um, so I see right now that basically people are having the least amount of sex ever,
Mm.
especially like the younger generation. What do you think is causing that? What do
Hmm.
you think is what do you see in your research? What do you feel?
Yeah. Yeah, when you see something like, so there is the result, and then there's the data, and then there's the interpretation of the data.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see something like, oh, people are having less sex, historically less sex, you're like, oh wow. The instant derivation is they have become less sexually active, they have become sexually conservative, the right wing propaganda is working. You have all these conjectures. But this is something where, in hindsight, where I have realized when you get your PhD, you're not just getting a PhD in doing research, it rewires your brain. And one of the ways that it rewires your brain or makes you think in different ways is what other possible explanations can be there. It's not always A, hence B. It
Is it
could be A and
causality doesn't
correlation is
imply
not causation.
right
Yeah.
correlation? Yeah.
And so when you think about correlation is not causation, when you're thinking about, oh, what are the other external factors that could be at play? So there was this like very cool study that we read when you're doing quantitative PhD statistics or master statistics is, in summer, having more ice cream increases crime rates in a city. And
Oh, I've seen those
so
like parallel data kind
yeah,
of
and then you're
things.
like, oh my God, then I'm not gonna have ice cream, right? But is that the factor that is leading this? But it turns out that summertime means more people on the streets, means more crime. Also, summertime means more ice cream consumption. So there is a confounding variable, or there is a third factor that is affecting this relationship. In a similar fashion, when you're looking at Gen Z having less sex, first thing is, what are they defining as sex? How are you defining sex right now, given that we are living in this world of gender fluidity, sexual expression in different ways? The very idea of sex has changed. I was watching this a reality TV. It's called The Ultimatum, and it's queer version Ultimatum. And these two women, one was, I think one was so they had to swap their partners or something happened where the female in the relationship and the non-binary person, they had sex but it was not penetrative sex. It was penetrative in the fact that fingers were used, right? Probably
Hmm.
something of that sort. In that dictionary, that is sex. But if
Hmm.
you ask a cis-het person, is that sex? They'd probably say no. So who is defining sex? Who has curated this instrument? Was it created by a cishet person? Is that the definition that we are using for sex, or
Yeah,
was
and
it
if you do sex videos and
that is
masturbate
sex,
with each
right?
other, like
Yeah.
you're both satisfied, but doesn't count
Yeah,
in depending on whose
that's exactly
version.
right. So you have to question the question before questioning the answer. So how are you defining sex? If it's sex is penetrative, yeah, could be that has decreased because sexual expressions have changed. So the answer to that is yes. One possible explanation, they have become sexually conservative. That's of course an option. The second option could be they are being sexual without having sex.
I noticed you wrote that somewhere,
Yeah.
and I wanted to hear what that means to you.
Not just what it means to me, but what people are doing. So in think about dating when technology didn't exist, when these videos didn't exist. How did a relationship progress? I'm taking a very cishet example. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. They make eye contact, they flirt a little bit, they go on a date, they kiss. And then they might go back to each other's place, they could have sex, and that's that. How does it work right now? Boy meets girl, girl meets boy. That meeting in an online dating context could be sexual. You can put up very suggestive pictures. Well, it's sexual expression, isn't it? That could prime your chat to stay asexual, non-sexual, or escalate really quickly. Like send me a DP, right? Or send me a picture. You can have very feisty conversations that can escalate into a video chat, like you said, which can be sexual. So by the time you meet each other, and this is the data showed that as well, that people who met each other online versus who met each other at parties, etc., it escalated very fast when you met each other online because you have these sexual primers already. So you're comfortable with each other. You've seen each other's bodies. You've articulated and you've vocalized your fantasies, what you want to do with each other. Everything has been said and done. There is a certain level of trust and familiarity that's already been established, which escalates it from a 0 to a 90.
And I saw
So,
that you had here that 31% of students who met on dating apps had unprotected sex
oh yeah.
versus 13 who met at
Mhm,
school and work and 8%
mhm,
who met at parties. Why?
mhm,
I mean, obviously, you can say things about that, but why do you
mhm.
find that that is such a large difference?
Yeah. So let me give the third explanation of why they could have had less sex. And this is something that the
Okay.
data shows that sex can be different, they could be sexually conservative. But what I found to be statistically significant is social anxiety. That is, they are not less sexual, they are just less social, right? And a part of sex is knowing this person, being a little vulnerable. Even if you are this sex goddess, you have to still articulate what you want this sub and dom relationship to look like. Well, if you're always under threat of being cancelled or saying something or thinking about your reputation, how it might bode on you, all of those things are going on in the minds of these young folks, which can impede your sexual expression. Just the other day, I was watching Sex Education, and I don't know if you've watched Sex
I
Education, but
haven't. I
it's a
haven't.
fantastic show on Netflix. And this man calls a sex therapist type radio host and says that I can't have sex with this woman because my penis is flaccid. And she said that, well, what is going on in your head? And he talks about how when he's having sex with this woman, he's thinking about his ex-wife, and that feels like cheating to him. He doesn't feel connected to this person. So the sex therapist says that, well, now you have to like let that go. Essentially, what she was saying is your penis needs to be in love. It has to
Yeah.
have room. Look at me using all the analogies. It has to have room to grow. you can be so bogged down with thinking how you're being perceived by the other person that it gets in the way of your expression, be it sexual, be it identity. And that's one of the factors that's playing on in the minds of young folks, that they're just socially anxious, and that affects their sexual expression.
I have found, yes. And I found also, too, that my own pet theory
Hmm.
is that if we got lost, you had to physically drive to a physical location,
Hmm.
walk up to a real human being,
Mm.
admit that you fucked up, and then ask them for help.
Yep.
And if you were in a store and needed to find something, you had to go find someone and
Hmm.
talk to them and interact
Hmm.
with them. Even at the checkout, there's no self checkout. So that 3 feet of walking up to somebody else and they noticing you is large.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think that an entire generation just never had to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's not dating, it's just interpersonal relationships
That's
in
exactly
general.
true. Yeah.
And then throw in a pandemic, and a
Yeah,
lot of the
just
kids
throw
are
some
not
of
all
that in.
right.
Yeah, but also like I do want to acknowledge the fact that we do over attribute the importance of interpersonal communication, that we tend to like over glorify interpersonal face-to-face communication. It doesn't need to be all that as well. Like what I'm trying to say, Hunt, is the grammar of human communication is changing.
Hmm.
Nothing is better or worse, just the grammar in and of itself is changing. We are changing the way in which we communicate with each other. We are changing the rules. And we are sort of in this flux where we don't quite know what is to be, but we also know what we do not ascribe to at all. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting time to be. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, the minute that you can put on a tactile suit
Mm.
and you could touch me
Hmm.
over the internet,
Oh yeah, we're done.
we're done. That's
We're
it.
done.
I mean, I mean,
Listen, I
it's
mean, we
there.
live in the New York City, Jersey City area. If there is a day where I don't need to leave, because the moment I leave, I lose $100
Dude,
miraculously.
yeah.
I'm
You,
like, I'm okay with being home. It's
yeah,
fine. It's
we call
cool.
that, yeah, like there's a $20 walking out of your house fee around here. Like, just
Why?
like, yeah, yeah,
Why?
inflation's pushing it up a little bit
Oh
as
my
well, too.
God. You know,
Um, but
there is a theory of that like like how inflation is affecting
completely,
friendships, like how
yeah.
we just don't want to go out. Yeah, we can say that we're fatigued, but we're also very aware that, man, we're going out. I mean, honestly speaking, it's at least $100 every time I go out. It almost makes it like not worth it to
And
hang
then
out.
I've had lots of men that say, I
Mhm.
can't afford to date.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's even a joke amongst the women called the New York Meal Plan.
I've done that.
I,
You're not
you
gonna
know,
regret it. I've done
I
that.
have too.
Yeah.
I won't say I was sugared, but I had a thing
Yeah.
for older women. So I was
Oh,
taken care
okay,
of.
friends. Okay,
Um,
I see you.
that
French
was
women, older women. I see a pattern here.
look, what it is for me is the ability to know yourself.
Oh yeah.
And most
Hmm.
I it always sort of boggled my mind. I would have sex with
Hmm.
a woman,
Hmm.
same age person, say 23,
Hmm.
23.
Hmm.
I've been inside of you everywhere. Now you
Hmm.
get up to go to the bathroom and cover yourself.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I just saw all of that, you
Hmm.
know, whereas
Yeah.
with older women, you have sex with them and they have to go to the bathroom. They prance
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
bathroom. And,
I agree.
obviously, I'm overgeneralizing, oversimplifying
Hmm.
things as well, too. But
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's basically known women get into their sexual primes later than
Hmm.
men do. I think that's
Hmm.
God's last joke. Like, by the time men figure out what to do, we're like past our prime. Like, God damn it. And like, I finally
Oh.
learned, to get myself like situated where I need to. Um, so yeah, I like people that are very forthright. My
Yeah.
therapist told me I had boundary issues and that I have none.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
prefer people that like are open. and I
Mm-hmm.
found people that know themselves. Yeah, and so I just that particular demographic tended to know themselves a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about, like I said, in the New York City area is whatever you want, there it
Yeah.
exists.
Yep.
Any
Yep.
flavor, any age, any
Anything.
size.
Anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly the melting pot of America.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and you and I in Jersey City, I mean, it's statistically the most diverse city
Diverse.
in the
Yeah.
country, and
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful. I'm raising my kids here, and during COVID, we had those larger discussions of where do we want to live and what do we want to do and what is happiness and those things like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And anywhere we go from here, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes less diverse and
I
less
know.
and so my wife is Latina, so
Mm-hmm.
I want my kids to be able to both feel welcome everywhere and to learn from everyone, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's a great area up here
Oh
too.
yeah.
um and it being, I think that Jersey City being the city that has the largest amount of Indians outside of India, though I think Toronto's getting close.
Oh.
I have been around both the community and the what did you call it, the sexual minority student. I was looking at something in your writings, and there was something called a sexual minority student. I can figure that out.
Visible minority? Is that what you were saying?
No, and then but then talking about like the international students and
Oh,
how
yeah, yeah,
they hook
yeah.
up, and what
Mm-hmm.
is different in the intern. You are first generation,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a different outlook on what that college experience is going to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Um, and did you find was there any data on international students using apps more or less than?
Yeah. My hypothesis was that because I was that international
That's what
student,
I was thinking.
my meal plan when you were talking about that was a broke PhD student who had just defended her dissertation, waiting for her job in New York City, not having much to do. So I'm just like going on Tinder, just having the time of my life. I mean, I've already defended my dissertation. What else is there? So I was just, with no intention to have any relationship with anybody. I was just going on dates, and I may have redeemed that meal plan coupon, but but the amount of listen, I paid through my patience is what I would say. I shit you not, I went on a date with this guy. This guy, I know that his entire family through the conversations we've had, and the last time, like when we were leaving, he's like, "How do I pronounce your name?" I'm like, "Okay, we're done here."
Wow. Yeah.
So, we pay with our patience. Like if time is money, yes, I took the dollars in terms of food, but I also gave my time. So we're even.
I have an infographic I'll share with you. I figured out it costs about $40,000 a year to date in New York City.
Oh my
All publicly available data. What's
gosh.
the average salary? How
Mm,
much time does the average dater spend online? This is just
mm,
online dating, which is, by the way, it's 90 minutes a day.
mm.
Um, how much is the average date? What is inflation? How long does it take to commute? What's the cost? And
Mm.
basically
It's
factored all that in,
um,
and like until you see it down on paper, you don't
you
realize
don't
the
realize.
cost that it exists. I use that infographic because matchmaking can be pricey. Matchmaking can be $50,000, and I understand
Mm,
it, and I try to also break it down for the individuals so they can understand why it costs what it does.
that's right.
But also, it's like the other option is just spending $40,000 a year every
People
year.
don't see it.
Yes, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
it's also people don't value their time the way that they should, I feel.
Mm, mm.
Um,
Because it's free, right? Like,
right,
there's no
exactly. But if
price
you look at
tag
your
for
time
it.
as billable hours,
Oh my God.
you
And
would,
the
you would,
emotional labor. Oh my goodness. The
yep.
emotional labor. It's a lot. I mean, there's a reason why I would just called it quits a couple of years before. I'm like, I can't, and I can't do. I'm too old for this shit. Like, no, I'm no. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm not gonna. But yeah, in terms of international students, that was my hypothesis that these folks, they're coming from a foreign land. Uh, they want to acclimatize themselves with the American culture. The American college culture is like hooking up, stuff like that. A lot of these avenues where you find hookup partners are not accessible to international students. So a hotbed are parties where international students are not getting access to that. And even if they do have access to that, they don't have time for that because we're all on a, we're the clock is ticking. And you need to make sure that you are networking, you're completing your coursework, you're acclimatizing yourself to this new education system, you're thinking about immigration. There might not be any time. So my hypothesis was because of these social barriers, and because of the infeasibility of getting access to these, overcoming these social barriers, easy point of entry is online dating. I cannot say with confidence if this hypothesis was dismissed because I did not have enough data. But what I can say with confidence is this entire hookup culture is no longer a phenomenon which America has hold over. It has percolated across the world. And because I come from India and I have that dual lens of understanding how culture moves and it shifts, from an Indian perspective, from an urban elite Indian perspective, have that privilege as well. I see. I have been there, like there's this Western ideology of like, oh, it's all laissez-faire, right? Like, you're just hanging out and hooking up with people, things are casual. And then we are from a country where we are perceived as traditionalists, we are perceived as like conservative. There is this, even if it's not articulated explicitly, there is this push to like go against that. That, oh, I am liberal, I am hanging out like without any agenda, I am hooking up. So there is a, I don't want to use the word catching up, but like giving out this impression that we are not regressive, right? We are on the same path. And in doing that, sometimes we over vector, right? Like we think, I mean, and this happens all the time where, I mean, I start my book with this, that when you come into a college, everybody thinks the other person has had more sex than them, when the
Oh
other
yeah.
person is bone dry. But because you're trying to like amp up your count, you end up having sex with people you don't want to have sex with because you thought the other person is ahead of you. So that's what happens in the Indian context as well, that most, if not all, of these folks who had come from other countries, they had already had hooked up with people. They were not like opening up their hookup bank account in America. They had already done that in their home country. So hooking up, just like Halloween, has been exported from American college campuses very, very successfully, to the rest of the world.
I'm happy with both of those things.
Both.
Uh,
I love it. I love it. Listen,
Halloween's
I
awesome.
mean, it's, I mean, okay, listen, much respect to America, much respect to America. But the range that we have with playing around with Halloween, it's unparalleled. We have Bollywood movies on our side. Do you know how many iconic characters we have from those movies? Do you know how colorful they are? The range, right? This Halloween, I'm gonna go out and then I'm gonna see nine Barbies and 10,000 Kens. Like, okay,
Yes.
and
What? But
and
the well, I missed out a little bit on the whole slutty. Like,
oh,
oh, I'm going to be a nurse, a
not too
slutty
late,
nurse. Oh, I'm going to be a
not
cat,
too
a
late.
slutty cat. Like but
Anything is funny.
it was, there was definitely sexy costumes
Yeah.
and stuff, but it wasn't just like I was lucky enough to go to college at the University of Miami, so everyone's dress
Mm,
was about this big.
mm.
So that
Yeah,
you
it's just
sort of got over that though real
yeah, yeah,
quick,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Listen, I went to Michigan State University and
I'm sorry, yeah.
um I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. But I loved it. Listen,
But
you know what? Okay, I'll tell you this though. As I don't know why you said I'm sorry. Is it because it's the Midwest? Is it because it's Michigan? Is it because it's a state
it can
university?
be,
Is it
well, I had a friend that
all of
went
the
to
above?
Michigan, and
Yeah.
but yes, it could be all of the above
Ah!
too, because it's probably like, oh, I went to Michigan State. Oh yeah, like no, 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 Michigan State. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like, all
All right.
right.
So my sister graduated from University of Michigan, so I went to her
Oh boy.
graduation, and I got my PhD in Michigan State. And so I was talking to her professors, and since I was also a professor at Pace at the time, so I enjoy talking with professors. And this professor, he is so funny. He's like something Dr. Bratch, and he's like, oh yeah, Michigan State, go green, go white. And I was just getting elated until he put the zinger, can't read, can't write. And I'm like, okay. But it was fun. I'll tell you this though, before Michigan State, I went to Bowling Green State
Hmm.
University, which was like in Bumblefuck, Ohio, right? Like it's it's so tiny, even Google Maps does not acknowledge it as a place. So when I put Bowling Green, it shows me like Kentucky. But the smaller the town, the more debaucherous the activities.
Dude, I grew up in a small town. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The more debaucherous, and that was my first brush with the American culture. I'm like,
Welcome.
okay, okay. I like this. This is good. So it was a lot more civil in Michigan State. I will tell you that. But I thought that was the norm. And now I'm looking at these 90s Instagram pages where white women are putting up posts like, what were we thinking when we were dressing up like this? And it was like a bandeau dress in the middle of January, like negative 20 degrees. And these folks are standing with their
Let's
stilettos,
remember always seeing like the
no
little girls
coat
clutching
on.
their clutches.
And no code in that. And I'm a recent immigrant from India, and I'm like, maybe white bodies are just built different, you know? Maybe they're just so used to the cold that they don't need these parkas. Because I was forever amazed at like how are you standing with stilettos on with just a dress in the middle of
Barely a belt.
January? Yeah, exactly. And I used to think that maybe they have like chugged a whole bunch of vodka. That's why they're warm from the inside. I didn't know they were getting frostbite and they were doing it anyway. So
That's
wonderful time. Wonderful
one of
time.
my projects. I'm on a quest with a capital Q, and that is
Mm.
to talk to one person in every country on the planet about what dating and relationships are like in their area.
Oh.
Because what you were alluding to as well too, the mores and the values shift
Mm.
dramatically from
Mm-hmm.
place to place, even within subcultures. Like even if I call American
Mm.
dating in Texas and dating in New York City are going
Very
to be
different.
very different. You know,
Very
what you do, how you
different.
approach it, what the other person looks for in a mate. Like if I go down to Texas, I can't use a rope. And maybe
Mm.
me not being able to use a rope is going to be a disqualifier for me.
Mm.
And I think that
Oh,
that's idiotic,
I
but
thought
that's the
like
way it is.
you would say like a cowboy hat or something.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all of the things. So it's so interesting to see because it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to
Mm.
understand what the values systems are of the
Mm.
culture that you're in.
That's right.
Because even in Jersey City, you're in America, you're
Mm-hmm.
in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
metro area, then you're specifically in Jersey City, and then we have all of our own little subsets,
Mm.
ethnically, social, economically,
Mm-hmm.
here as well too, that we're always trying to figure out. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it can be real. It can be exhausting out there
It
trying to
is.
figure out
Really.
what to do, how to do it. Um,
It's a lifelong learning process.
it is. It is. I equate it to playing pool, like
Mm.
almost every other sport. Like this is a ball. This is how you use this ball. There's
Mm-hmm.
kids leagues and everything like that. But like pool, you just go to a bar one day and just start shooting pool and try to
Mm.
pick up the skills and the lessons along the way. But
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever sits you down to teach it, to help you
Right.
with it. And
Right.
so some people get it a little more than others, some people don't. And I can understand. And to me, one of the scary things is forget which uh, exactly what study it was, but when men are rejected romantically, they become conservative and they want to take rights away from immigrants
Yeah.
who didn't even have anything to do with them being turned down. They want to take things away from women. Like, and that gets weird and scary, and that's where the incels come from. And
You mean to say all Republican men are hanging out in Bumble?
I did love the honey traps that came out after the January 6th attempted coup. Is that like all the girls clicked conservative and then wanted to get the guys to admit that they were there, and then sent the information to the FBI.
No
Oh, it was a
way.
thing. The girls went, girls, thank you, you did it. Like I appreciate it.
Champion.
They was
Even for the
smart.
team.
Oh yeah.
There's this new I follow Love is Blind. I like Love is Blind and The Ultimatum are the only two reality shows that I will ever watch because they're so
Have you ever seen Indian matchmaking?
Indian matchmaking. I mean, Indian matchmaking is just as hilarious as it can get. But I like it. But the reason I brought the Love Is Blind is there's this guy who is obsessed with the red, white, and blue. Obsessed with red, white, and blue. And people are like, those shoes have walked the Capitol on January 6th because this is so
Oh yeah.
insane how this guy is obsessed with the red and the white and
I
the
saw
blue.
that. Saw a
It's
post near
crazy.
Christmas time too that said, "Hey, ladies, when you go home, when you meet that wonderful small town man that takes your heart away, ask him where he was on January 6th.
Yeah,
Like, just make sure."
just make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
This has been fun. This is a fun conversation. Are
Well,
we
I'm glad.
really ending our conversation on January 6th?
No, no, we'll get some fun things to go. Now I like you remind me a little bit of John Berger. I don't know if you ever heard of
Oh
the book
yeah. Oh yeah.
Datanomics.
I have met him. He came to my office once as well.
I'm in his second book.
Oh
Um,
wow.
but in that, like, you're not in this anymore, but you will never not be.
Mm.
You are part of this world now
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm,
of
mm-hmm.
just because of your knowledge, the books.
Yeah.
So we'll keep coming back to you for more and
Oh,
more
thank
things,
you. Yeah.
and especially like just here in Jersey City, I worked with an actual Indian matchmaker, and
Mm.
we put together a coaching program for Indian men,
Mm. How'd that go?
because of the reasons, and sometimes you just need to help understand that white shoes and black socks do not go together, or
Mm.
that this is a belt,
Mm.
or you can wear colors,
Mm.
or people get hairstyles,
Mm.
and because it's a different value system too.
Mm.
Like a lot of men in
Mm.
general
Mhm.
think women value, money and
Mm.
jobs and esteems and things like that, but none of that gets you laid. Um, so, helping them understand
Mm.
in what level they're looking for kind of is what is valued too is, um, me and my business partner, he moved to Toronto from India as well too. And since he had never been around women, he had to like get the books, and like he researched dating the same way as he researched a PhD, like and learned and went out, and he's married now and he's very happy. But it was interesting, getting both of our brains together to kind of like, we want to make it easier for everybody, basically. And I know anyone coming from any other country is going to be a bit of a detriment. And so we just want to make sure that we can give everybody a little bit of a helping boost, and maybe we can
Yeah.
get you to come and talk to some of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Help our men get laid.
Yes, yes, men, and this is something that I'm sure you know as well too, but like the focus had been on wonderfully so women for the last 50 years and propelling them, and they've gone way further than could have imagined, but
Mm.
unfortunately the men have not kept pace.
Mm.
And
In comes Andrew Tate.
in comes Andrew Tate, yeah, just jobs.
JP, Jordan Peterson.
Yes. So yeah, we as a society need to figure
Mm.
out how to help these boys.
Yeah.
Because then it's gonna help the women. Like the
Wow.
more emotionally intelligent men that you
Right.
can raise with good communication skills, the easier it's gonna be for everybody involved.
That's a no-brainer for sure.
Yeah, and there's enough people out there with no brains that
Mm.
you'll stand out. So, well, thank you so much
Well, thank
for
you.
coming on. We'll have another conversation some point down the line, but tell everybody, well, where to find you if they want to,
Mhm.
or if there's anything that you're working on and you want to plug in any part of your life.
Thank you again, Hunt. It's been an uphill climb to get this podcast to be recorded, so I appreciate your persistence. Yeah, I was on this constant mode of publicizing my book and my research last year. And through that, I've met such cool folks. So thank you for reaching out and for making this happen. Everybody, if you're interested, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's my primary platform to reach out to. It's Dr. Aditi Paul. Of course, my website is draditipaul.com. I am open to talk about everything under the deep blue sky, starting from being an immigrant in the US to online dating as an immigrant, as a woman, to anything else that you'd like to chat about. Because why restrict yourself to all these topics? There's so much to life that we can learn from each other. So please reach out and give a 5 star to Hunt. He's
Yeah.
done such a great job at his podcast
Thank you.
and his eye for spotting good
Talent.
folks to bring up, which is a backhanded compliment to myself. How narcissistic is this?
Exactly. Hey, hey, we have to love ourselves before we can love someone else. So a good, healthy dose of self-love is important.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you again, and we'll figure out some more stuff that we can do, and I'll be looking forward to checking anything else out from your side. So
Awesome. Thanks, Hunt. Take
thank you so
care.
much. All right, bye
Bye.
bye.